Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Y education series known as Y.E.S. My name's Amy. I work at the North Suburban YMCA. Today we have Beth Lee, who is our very own. She's a personal trainer amongst many other things. Today, Beth is going to be sharing with us all about perimenopause, which is a really topic that is helpful and I feel sometimes a little bit misunderstood, and there's not too many resources out there about it right now. So we are very happy to have you. And if anyone has questions, pop them in the chat and I'll let you take it away. Beth, thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you. Absolutely. So, yep, I'm Beth Lee. I am a personal trainer at the North Suburban YMCA, and I've been in the fitness industry since like the late 90s. Done a few other things besides that, but I'm really excited to be sharing about my experience in perimenopause. And I'm gonna, like I said, for those of you who are already here, like I'm gonna get into a lot of detail, just because this is the format that I wish I would have had when I was going through some really unknown and super scary times for me. So menopause, oops, I'm using the wrong thing. Let me share my PowerPoint. That would be the best thing to do first. Right? We got it? All right. Um, so um, what I'm going to be sharing with you is my personal story, and then we're going to get into a little briefing on, kind of what perimenopause is. I'm going to get a little sciencey about it, but not too detailed, but enough to kind of give you an understanding of like why our bodies are having the symptoms they're having, and also give you a better understanding of why we need to change how we do fitness during this kind of stage of life. And just to kind of preface this too, I know this specific talk is about perimenopause, but all the principles that I'm talking about for fitness and what we need to do and change, they are still the things that we need to be doing post menopause. And I'll get into a little bit some of those definitions of like perimenopause, post menopause, and what menopause is, and that sort of stuff as well as we go through this. So I'll talk about how things change, what we need to do now, why what we were doing in our 20s and 30s wasn't working, and then we'll talk about kind of all the takeaways too. And I know Amy already mentioned this, but I just want to make sure everyone knows that this is a safe space. So any question that asked, nothing is going to be judged. There are some of my symptoms or even some things that I learned that I was like, holy cow, really? Like that happens? So I'll share some of those. Some of them I might send in an email, but it's really important that we talk about these things so we know like really what's going out there. And I know, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was like a big Oprah perimenopause thing that came out. And one of the people that came to the in-person workshop was like, oh, I haven't seen that yet. But when I saw it, it's just like so affirming that it sounds bad, but some of the symptoms that Oprah experienced and went to her doctors for were exactly what mine were. And she, all the money she has, still didn't get the answers like I didn't get the answers. So it's like money can't even buy like, good healthcare when it comes to perimenopause. But yeah, so just like if you have a chance to watch it, it's kind of just encouraging to know. I even teared up in a couple spots because I was like, oh my gosh, somebody else is experiencing this too. Like it's just nice to know that we're not alone in this. So let's see. To start in my story. So I was married in my mid 30s, had some pregnancies in my late 30s and early 40s, which included 2 live births and 2 miscarriages. I mentioned that or I should say vaginal births, because that does make a difference, like pelvic floor health, and I'll talk about that later. So that's why I mentioned that. It's not just to get, TMI going. But my husband and I, we moved to Northbrook in the summer of 2022, I think it was. And I was a stay-at-home mom at that point. When I had kids, I had the opportunity to not have to work. And so I just was doing the stay-at-home mom thing. And I've always been passionate about fitness, and I decided to just start to do some research on perimenopause because I was like, oh, that's a ways away. I'm just gonna like kind of research up on it. And there's this really awesome exercise physiologist named Dr. Stacy Sims, and I know this will show up backwards, but this is her book called Next Level, and she is I'd say the gold standard for an exercise physiologist as it relates to exercise for females, not just premenopause, but perimenopause, postmenopause. She is the gold standard. She does get pretty technical and it gets very sciencey, but that's kind of, I've taken 2 courses that are endorsed by her. I'm currently taking her course right now on perimenopause or menopause 2.0. And it does get very sciencey, but this is kind of me bringing that down, kind of scoping it in, and making it a little bit more understandable. So let me get back to where I was. So part of my research, I was just listening to different academic-based podcasts. One that I will mention is called Hit Play Not Pause. It is very specific to endurance athletes, but a lot of, they have different professionals come on, or even just people that I have gone through perimenopause and maybe they're focused on mindset and mental wellness, but they have a lot of things that even if you're not an endurance athlete, you can glean from it. And I'm not currently an endurance athlete, but I'm active and I consider myself like an athlete because I'm active. So you might be in that same boat too. Again, sometimes it does get a little sciencey, but it's definitely worth checking out. You can look through the podcast and find, whatever topic is, kind of more calling your attention. So back to me doing the research. So I was doing the research, just all this kind of thinking this is way off in the future. And then one night, something happened. I was putting my little toddler to bed, laying next to him. He likes to snuggle. And I have my handy dandy little Apple Watch here. And I'm laying in bed, snuggling him until he falls asleep. And I'm noticing that my resting heart rate is not coming down. Normally, my resting heart rate was like in the 50s, So I'm like, gosh, this is weird. My heart rate's in the 90s. Like, what is happening? So he fell asleep. I went into my bed and I'm like laying there. My husband's already asleep. My other kid's already asleep. And like my heart rate's just not coming down. And I am feeling like my whole body is pounding. Like when my heart would beat, I would just like feel it throughout my whole body. I could just feel, it felt like a fluctuating blood pressure. And then of course, like, I start thinking, gosh, like, is something like, am I having a heart attack? Like, what is happening? So I tried doing like, the calming breathing exercises, the triangle breathing, and I'm laying in bed. And like, so that was like from basically like, 9:30 p.m. until like 2 a.m. I'm trying to like bring this all down. And I'm like, what is happening? And so finally I'm like, I think maybe I'm having a heart attack. I don't know what's happening. So side note too, like, so the feeling of this, I don't know, for any of you who have had the opportunity to give birth and you get to that point of that transition stage where you like get the shakes. I don't know if any of you got the shakes, but that was kind of the similar feeling throughout my body that was going on. So I'm like, what is happening? Like, I've only had that 4 other times, because when I had the miscarriages I had it too. But it was just like this uncontrollable shaking feeling. But I was like, I think I woke up my husband at 3. I'm like, I think I need to, go to the ER. So he was on the phone with me. He stayed home with the kids, and I'm like talking to him as I'm driving to the ER. And when I got to the ER, my blood pressure was 169/132. And normally my blood pressure is like 113/68. So they like rushed me in. They hooked me up to everything. I got an EKG. I was throwing PVCs, which is like a premature ventricular contraction. It's like the heart doesn't open up all the way, so the blood doesn't fill in enough. And then when it does fill in enough, then it just like crashes in, and it's like you can feel it more throughout the body. So they did CT scans, they checked for pulmonary embolisms, like they did everything and anything. And I even asked them, I'm like, you know, like, because I had been researching it, perimenopause, I'm like, is there any correlation to like, you know, perimenopause or like hormone fluctuation? And they just like didn't even really kind of respond to that, which I'm, you know, they're focused on my heart. I wanted them to be focused on those things. So basically, they did all these tests, and, you know, I don't know, it was by 7 a.m. They're like, well, we're just going to send you home. And I'm like, am I dying? Like, what is happening? Like, they couldn't give me any answers. What they said is that they would, you know, write a prescription for me to wear a heart rate monitor for 2 weeks. But I was so scared. I was thinking that, like, okay, can I do fitness? Can I exercise? You know, like, I just didn't know what to do. And because we had so recently moved here, I didn't even have a primary care physician yet. So I was assigned one by the ER. And I went to an appointment with this physician, and it was a male physician who had no personal experience with perimenopause. And he was completely dismissive of my symptoms. My husband was there for the appointment, and he was even to the point of being condescending. He had told me, like, well, if anything happens again, call me. So I'd called him one night to tell him of the symptoms, and he literally said, well, why are you calling me? And I was like, okay, I guess I'll just go to the ER again. It just was like so shocking. And my husband, again, I had the doctor on speaker. So I did, side note, I did file a complaint about that physician. And apparently I wasn't the only one who had that experience with him, but because of doctor shortages right now, you know, he keeps his job, sort of thing. But basically, so I had the heart rate monitor, I did that. I couldn't get an appointment with a cardiologist for another 3 months. Also, another weird thing that happened, that I didn't even know what it was until I had to I got a new primary physician who is wonderful, and she listens to me. But I was out shoveling snow because this was like January, February. I had come in from shoveling, and my fingers and toes were all purple. And I had never had that before again, or before prior to that. And my doctor, my now great doctor for the primary physician, she's like, that's Raynaud's phenomenon. And I was thinking I was having like some autoimmune disease happening, like, because I wasn't getting, you know, the answers that I was wanting. Again, a couple months after that, I ended up getting shingles. I had chicken pox when I was a child, but they're like, well, you know, it just sometimes happens. You don't have to be, you know, over 60 to get shingles. You can be 18 and get shingles if you've had chicken pox as a child. So I was really starting to think, like, with all these random things going on, I was really starting to think it was something autoimmune. I was having brain fog issues. And then a month after the Raynaud's phenomenon thing, I started to get this is a month after I'd already had a regular mammogram. I started to get some pain in one of my breasts. And I have lost a sister-in-law to breast cancer at a young age. And so my mind first went to that. So I'm just like so stressed. So after, I think they did 2 extra mammograms and ultrasounds, and the doctor's like, well, or the radiology doctor was like, well, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. But do you know that during perimenopause, if you have dense breast tissue, there's more hormones present in that dense tissue, and you're going to get more pain when that fluctuates. And that was the first physician that actually kind of said, yes, like, this is perimenopause. And it took, gosh, I think it was totally like 5 months and 6 different doctors to finally find someone to say perimenopause. And honestly, it wasn't until I collected my own data, because I am a data-driven person. I started a Google Doc. I was tracking my cycle. I was tracking the flow. I was tracking how my anxiety was. Did I argue with my husband more than I normally do? You know, like, all these different things. What I was eating. When did I notice the heart palpitations? When did I notice the blood pressure fluctuating? So I gathered all of that information. And I was even starting to look outside of Western medicine. I found an Eastern medicine acupuncturist physician. And when he looked at my data, he was like, yes, clearly this is perimenopause, like it's all tracking. And then when I got my new primary physician, she also was very wonderful about saying, thank you for collecting this data. Yes, this is all tracking. But it took 5 months and 6 doctors for someone to, you know, say, oh, okay, yeah, this is all kind of making sense. Excuse me one second. But basically, my takeaway for all of you on this is just advocating for yourself, because I could have just taken that experience in the ER and that first experience with that my first primary physician and been like, oh, well, I guess I'm okay, but they don't really know what it was. So just really, please advocate for yourself. That's what I want your takeaway to be. So I know we're like a little short of Women's History Month, but I wanted to just share a little bit. Actually, hang on. I forgot one resource I wanted to share. This book, it is called The New Rules of Menopause. This is different than another physician who has a book called The New Menopause, but this is from the Mayo Clinic. And when I was reading through this, you can see I have all these little tabs here. Like this was one of those resources that I was like, yes, like this is me, this is me, this is me. And I felt like because this was before I had gotten my new primary physician, I was like, I'm just going to take this book into that old doctor and I'm just going to say, look at all this stuff. But this, I highly recommend this book. It just like really secured in my mind, like, yes, this is what I'm going through, perimenopause. Sorry, I'm working on 2 different computers here, so I gotta keep it going. So again, like I was saying, with we're just missing out on Women's History Month. I wanted to share just a little bit about women's history. So Elizabeth Blackwell in 1849 was the first female medical doctor in the United States. After graduating from the Geneva Medical School, and it's just kind of crazy, like 1849. I know that sounds early, but it's quite late for everything that had been done medically. Now, this is where it gets a little bit juicy here. So historically, what is perimenopause? So BC, Hippocrates said that perimenopause, or those going through it, if you're born with a uterus, you're going to go through it. It's the weakening, and therefore you are going to lose power through it. Okay. 1600s, some of those who were considered witches were at the onset of menopause. So think of like women being burned at the stake for perimenopause symptoms. It's just like, what, are you kidding me? So same thing, 1700s, like the trend continues, like those in this stage are prone to hysterical fits. And then in the 1800s, menopause was connected to insanity, and women were forced into insane asylums, like for standard perimenopause. And trust me, I get it. Like there are times where like anxiety kicks in, or like the sound of like my children screaming and the TV being on, or you know, like all these overstimulating things. I'm like, bah, I kind of feel like I'm going insane. But like seriously, they were forced into insane asylums. There was electrical therapy belts that were put in to stimulate the ovaries, like so, like basically electrocuting these women. You know, it's just crazy. And then finally, in the 1900s, research begins on sex hormones and development of the pill and hormone replacement therapy occurred. Now, today, there is a lot of great information out there, along with pretty much just as much bad information. One thing I really want to caution you for, and I'll talk about this later too, is there is no one pill, one exercise routine, one this, one that, one supplement that is going to work for everyone. Everyone has a different ethnic background. Everyone's gone through different traumas. Our bodies respond to different things. So I just want everyone to know that yes, there are a lot of great resources out there that say take this supplement, or different celebrities that say take this, take that. They may work, but they also may not work. what you really need to find is the right exercise routine that will balance with hormone, if you need hormone replacement therapy or if you don't. But they're just talking to your doctor about it, talking to them about your symptoms. That's why I want you to be taking notes and going through this and really seeing, okay, what are my signs and symptoms, and then taking that to your physician so you can advocate for yourself. Okay, so what is perimenopause? So perimenopause is the transition from menstruation to postmenopause. So not having your period. This can last 6 to 10 years prior to that pause of your period, and it can last 6 to 10 years beyond that. So the symptoms, and some women even have symptoms like 20 years into being postmenopause. It just depends on family history, and life circumstances and different things. But that was one of the things when I first started research. I was like, oh gosh, so like the average age for a woman to have the pause in menstruation, or that menopause, is age 51. So at age 41, you could be experiencing some symptoms. Some women even start experiencing some things in their late 30s. I kind of like how some people refer to it as reverse puberty, because it really is like, it's reverse puberty. It's what is happening. You're losing the hormones that we gained during puberty. One of the things I did want to make sure that you were all aware of, and this is pretty much in any resource that I looked at, is when to see a doctor when you are going through perimenopause. So if you stop having periods before the age of 45, if you have super heavy periods where you have to change collection method every hour for more than 2 hours, because that's a lot of iron you're losing, blood you're losing, you just don't want to risk fainting, those sort of things, and you don't know what complications are going on. Also, periods lasting longer than 7 days or several days longer than usual. Spotting between the periods, or if your periods get closer than 21 days apart. One of my friends I was talking to, and she was having constant bleeding. Like, it wasn't heavy bleeding, but it was like constant, like all month long. And it took a while for her physician to be like, oh yeah, it's perimenopause. And it's just like, oh my goodness, like why does it take so long for us to get the answers that we need? So a little bit of clarification, because with perimenopause and menopause, contrary to popular belief, menopause isn't like once your period stops, you're in menopause. No, menopause is the first day that you have gone through 12 months with no period. So menopause is 1 day in time. It is just 1 day in time, which is crazy because like they just, generally in public, people talk about menopause being like once the period's done. No, once the period's done, that is 1 day in time of 12 months without a period. After that date, you are postmenopausal. Okay. So some more symptoms that I experienced that maybe are so common, not so common, but the heart palpitations. One of the things that I found in relation to that, after getting 2 really great doctors, that Eastern medicine doc and my new primary physician, was that heart palpitations and esophageal spasms, which sounds crazy, but it's basically kind of a reaction from like acid reflux or heartburn, or it can be. They are related and they can trigger one another because they are located very similarly close to one another. So I would get heart palpitations, which would then cause acid reflux, which would cause esophageal spasms, which would then cause, it's like this circular thing. And after seeing my the acupuncturist and kind of assessing my nutrition, I really had to like cut back on cheeses because that would cause it. I had to cut back on like tomato-based things. And I'll get into a few more of what I had to cut back on. It's very sad, some of them, but one of the unexpected things that I found out is going through all this, like after that 6 months of finally getting the diagnosis of perimenopause, I had been noticing I had been getting like divots like in the bottom part of my eyelid, and I didn't know why. And so I had an appointment with my eye doctor, and I was like, by chance, like, is this any way related to perimenopause? Like, I've been going through all these other crazy things. And she actually happened to be working for the medical college. She taught for the medical college, and she's like, why, yes. And here's what you need to do. You need to take more omega-3s. As soon as I started taking more omega-3s, my eyes weren't as dry, and those divots in my lower eyelids went away. So just to preface this too, like, check with your own doctors if you're having problems with this too. But it was just one of those things. She's like, yeah, you just need more omega-3s. So I needed to increase that. Dry skin, that was another thing. So my hot flashes were somewhat related to food intake. I was explaining to Amy, and I think Kate was maybe on at that time too, before we started the presentation, is that if I intake carbohydrates, but I don't have a protein with it, I tend to have a food related hot flash. And right when we started on this, I was like, oh guys, look, I actually had a red base hot flash right when we were kind of getting everything set up here. So timely. Tingling extremities. Like I would have tingling extremities when I was pregnant, and I hadn't had them since. And I started getting, it felt like carpal tunnel, like it just felt like tingling at night and that sort of thing. Random joint pains, sensitive gums, also pelvic floor pain during ovulation. I don't know if you all track your cycles or know when certain things happen, but if you're having pelvic floor pain or discomfort, like when sitting down, especially if you've had vaginal births, it might be related to that too. Granted, some of mine too, I do have some uterine fibroids that contribute to that, but that is also aggravated a little bit more because of the hormone fluctuations. I learned when I was listening to Hit Play Not Pause podcast, the host Celine Yeager, who is very awesome, very knowledgeable, she mentioned that she found out that anxiety was a symptom. And I was like, dear Lord, I didn't even know that, because I thought my anxiety, I felt it increase after I had our second child. And this was, June of 2020, pandemic, all that stuff. So I kind of had just chalked it up to that. And then we moved, so I've chalked it up to stress from moving and that sort of stuff. But when I heard her say that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is it, because I'm not a person that typically has anxiety. Like I tend to handle stress pretty well. I mean, goodness, I used to live in Central America and coordinate logistics for 30 people that would come down, and we'd be riding in the back of a truck on a mountain, and I wouldn't stress about it. So it's like, why is like getting my kids ready for school making me have a panic attack? It's just, you guys know how mornings can be, right? And then I put this picture of coffee because one of the foods that I cannot have is coffee or chocolate, because that causes heart palpitations. So it's very sad. Every once in a while I sneak in some chocolate and I don't have a reaction, but it's just one of those things that I'm like, okay, if I want to be okay with having heart palpitations, then I have the chocolate, that sort of thing. So now I know that Amy had sent a kind of like symptom checker to you previously. So I do have some links on that PowerPoint so you can see there too. But I just wanted you, and Amy, I don't know if you want to unmute people and just kind of see if anyone wants to share anything about any symptom they've had, or anything that I've said thus far that has been kind of affirming to them.
Yeah, I can, I think if everyone has the ability to unmute themselves if they want to speak, go ahead. Or if you want to, you can put it in the chat box. But everything that you've said, I had shingles as well, and I like 2 years ago.
What?
I know, when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh.
I know. It's like, what? So,
Yeah.
I'll just kind of, if no one wants to share anything, I'll kind of look through here. But like, anxiety, bladder infections, bowel changes, like you can get more constipated with the hormone fluctuation. Changes to your taste and smell. I thought that was an interesting one. Depression. I thought that was really a key one to note too, because sometimes maybe you go to a physician, you talk to them about it, and they give you a pill for depression, which isn't bad necessarily, but are they taking into account all the other things? So make sure if you are struggling with that you share with your doctor all the different things that are going on. So, so dry eyes, fertility issues, hair loss, headaches and migraines. I actually used to get migraines pretty much every month with my cycle. But once I started these heart palpitations, the migraines went away. Now, since as the hormones are kind of fluctuating back and forth more, I do occasionally get a migraine in that. But it's just interesting, you know, that it can be different for different people. Excuse me. Another thing, joint pain. I've had random things like stabbing pain in my foot. I go get MRIs, I get tests, and they're like, nothing's there. That's just one of those things that is part of perimenopause, random things. This next one, I am going to say it is very like TMI sort of thing, but I was watching, you know, on Reels, a comedian who was talking about labial shrinkage. And it sounds crazy to talk about. Well, when she said it, I was like, what? She's like, what happens? Do they just fall off? What happens? But when we are babies, we do not have inner labia. We don't get them until puberty. That's when they kind of grow due to the increased estrogen. So it makes sense then when our estrogen decreases, that the labia, inner labia will shrink. So that's one of those things that like this comedian was making fun of it, but I was like, oh my gosh, like that's not talked about. Like we need to talk about these things. Um, Another thing, I've talked to so many of my clients at the Y that just have lack of motivation. They're like, I don't know what to do. Like they contract me because they need the accountability and they will only show up to work out if I'm there. And that's totally fine. They know that, they know that's what they're going through right now. But it's key to know those sort of things. All right, so let me see. Osteoporosis, that's another key thing. I'm going to talk about things to do there that Dr. Sims, one of the studies that she shares is that osteoporosis, whether it's osteopenia or osteoporosis, actually, that some of those symptoms can be reversed with some of the plyometric training that I'm going to talk about, and I'll give you some examples of. So yeah, anything else? Anyone want to comment on anything before I move to the next thing? Okay.
Oh, Beth,
Oh yeah.
Aisha just said that Lisa Mosconi is a PhD who's done extensive work on perimenopause. She's got a wonderful TED Talk.
Ooh, I will look at that. Thank you. If she wants to like, I mean, I'll look it up, but if she has the link, that'd be great. So another thing that I wanted to share was kind of the hormones as they're related to the symptoms. So low estrogen, that's where the hot flashes, night sweats, heart palpitations, headaches, insomnia, fatigue, bone loss, vaginal dryness kind of all set in. Higher estrogen, which is what happens when we get our periods, right? Is that bloating, breast tenderness, heavy bleeding. Now, progesterone actually is very much related to estrogen. So the progesterone will be raised in response to the estrogen levels. So typically during our cycle, as it goes up and down, the different hormones, as estrogen goes up, then progesterone will kick in. And that um and that is just in a normal follicular or phase or a normal regular cycle phase. But as we go through perimenopause, the lower estrogen, that means lower progesterone because progesterone responds to estrogen, right? So because of that, the periods can become irregular, heavier, they can become longer in duration. And that was actually my experience. I had our second child when I was 41, almost 42. And then I didn't have a cycle for 15 months because I was breastfeeding. And that's when I think all of this perimenopause stuff started, but I didn't really know it was perimenopause. But once I did start my cycle post partum with my son, it was like crazy heavy and it was like 7 days long, which prior to that, my cycle would be like 3 to 4 days, you know, not too bad. I'd have some cramps, but it wouldn't be bad. But it was just like crazy. So that's when I think things did start happening, even though I was, you know, 42 at the time. So what does this all have to do with exercise and my body now, right? Why we're all here for the answers. So nice little graphic here. So if you see, let me see if I can get a little pencil going here. So this right here is a nerve, okay? And then this right here is the muscle. And then this section right here is where there's this gap in between that nerve ending. And if you're looking at me on the screen, Amy, everybody can see me, right? Okay. So if you're looking, this is the nerve, and then this is the muscle. There's like this gap or this kind of cleft in between. And for the nerve signal to get to that muscle, estrogen during our regular ovulatory cycles, when we're in our fertile years, estrogen is kind of like helps for that electrical signal to get sent easier. It's kind of like water, you know, conducts electricity. It helps to conduct that signal better to the muscle. So as you can imagine, when we have less estrogen, then that nerve signal isn't going to get to that muscle as easily. So what that also means, and this is kind of, you know, you're wondering, why do I have more adipose tissue around this region here, or around the, you know, your derriere or your pompis, as we say in Spanish? It's because your body is not responding to exercise as it did before, because that estrogen is not there to jump that gap. So there's your answer, ladies. Okay, there you go. So that is why, you know, in your 20s, you could do 30 minutes of cardio and, you know, go down that dress size or whatever. Not that that's why we exercise. And we're going to talk about mindset a little bit later. And sorry, I just got to double check some. Okay. But we need to be doing things differently. We need to adapt our workouts so that that stimulus basically shouts at that muscle that it needs to do work, so that that signal, since the estrogen's not there, that signal needs to shout at that muscle so that it will get working. Excuse me. Oh, let me get out of my drawing app here. There we go. Oh, shoot. Did it leave the drawings on there? Let me see if I can undo those. There we go. There we go. So how do we overcome that signal deficiency? There we go. So what we need to do is we need to lift heavier weights in compound movements. So I'm just going to demonstrate real quick, and let me just move my over here. So typically you might see people doing exercises, and this is an isolated bicep curl. There aren't a whole lot of other muscle groups working, okay? But if I do a compound movement, I do a bent over row. This is working the biceps, the shoulders, the back. So it's doing more movements, which means we can, when we're not isolating, we can do heavier weights, where on the bicep, maybe I can only do, you know, maybe 10 pounds as an example. But on this one, when we're using the back muscles, we can do heavier weight. You might be able to do 40 pounds. Again, I'm just throwing out those numbers. But that's one example of a compound movement. With lifting the heavier weights in the compound movements, it's more important to get additional rest in between each set. So instead of just going from exercise to exercise to exercise, making sure that we get, you know, maybe we get 2 to 3 minutes rest in between sets. So for those of you who do work out at the Y, and you maybe see someone sitting at a machine and they're taking forever, they're just on their phone. Maybe they're just on their phone, but they also might be applying this principle, okay? So the days per week varies based on the time you have available and, you know, kind of how you have it worked out. But you can do this in a 3-day strength work. You can do shoulder press and back squat. So I'll just give examples. Obviously, I don't have barbells here at home, but shoulder press will be this right here. Don't hit my ceiling. So this is shoulder press. So this is working shoulders and triceps. Back squat, you would have a bar on you, keeping that chest high, sitting in a chair, standing up. That works multiple muscle groups. Bent over row, I already showed you. Deadlift, it's where you kind of keep the chest down and coming up. And then bench press, you're laying on your back. I'm not going to show that one, but you'd be laying on your back and pressing out forward. And then Romanian deadlifts are where your legs are straight, back is flat, keep the legs straight, get that stretch in the hamstrings, and then come up. So those are just examples of how you could pair them together. But obviously, if there's I would suggest working with a trainer who, even if it's not me, you can work with someone else and they'll know kind of how to do a split workout. Excuse me. Hey. Let's see. And what can we do about bone loss? So with bone loss, it's kind of a similar experience as with the nerve ending and the muscle signal. But here we got to basically shout at those bones that you need to stay strong. And this can be different depending on your fitness level. So some of the things I'm going to demonstrate right now, don't let that freak you out. I'm going to show you a few different levels that you can do. But ideally, for the bones to get stronger, and the study based on what Dr. Sims had talked about, is you need that impact. And we need to be doing plyometric explosive movement training for at least 10 minutes a week, or 10 minutes a time for 3 days a week. So basically what we're doing with plyometrics is you take speed plus power and you put it, or speed plus strength, and you put it together, and that gives you the power. So a lot of what we can do is we do body weight exercises. So I'm gonna move this so you're not gonna see my head. I want you to see my legs mostly. So like a level 1 of this for a plyometric would just be toe hops. So if you haven't ever done plyometrics, it looks basic, but this is building that base. And then as you get stronger and your body gets used to this, you can do squat, jump, squat, jump. As you get more advanced, squat, heel tap, squat, heel tap. As you get past that, you can do a jump box. Hopefully I don't break this piece of furniture because this isn't a jump box. So you're going to come up and down. It's getting that impact on the bones, so that they say, oh yeah, I need to get stronger. Okay, now let me catch my breath. Right. Skip this slide. Okay. Let's see. Next thing that I want to make sure we talk about, and hang on, still catching my breath.
Thank you for those.
You're welcome. And again, those are just a few examples. There are lots of other things to do. Actually, I'll show you another one real quick for an upper body. It's a plyometric push-up. You know what? I am going to move you over here. Over here. I don't know if you can see me. Excuse any laundry if you see any, but you're going to be leaning on a bench. You lower, push up. Lower, push up. And you can use a jump box for that. And again, like if you meet with a trainer, they can show you all these different things. But basically, we want to get that impact not only for the lower body, but also for the upper body. And there's like medicine ball slams. You grab a medicine ball, you slam it on the floor. You want that speed plus strength. That gives you the power. All right. Catching my breath again. So one thing that I think is super, super, super important, and I love what I've been seeing RY do lately, is talking about good health at all sizes. And I think first things first, like we really do need to address our mindset and how we view our body. I was very blessed in that in my undergrad, I had a nutrition professor, Mohi Mawafi. He was from Egypt, really just awesome guy. And I'm pretty sure he said it almost every class, but he always talked about good health at all sizes. And I think that is something, it's so hard in our society. We have all these pressures, like you should look like this, you should look like that. But what I think we need to do is appreciate our body for where it's at right now, appreciate our body for where it's been, what it's been through, all the things that it's accomplished. So I just want to encourage you all to appreciate your body and just kind of, yeah, just remind yourself like of the things that your body has done for you. So since we did talk about body composition, and we talked about one of the things, our body weight increases, and typically it'll increase kind of in that visceral fat region. It also increase in this region, all those fun places. And it's actually your body's doing what it thinks it needs to do to keep you healthy and fertile, which sounds weird, but when your ovaries stop producing estrogen, there is another way for your body to get estrogen, and it's through visceral fat. There's like a process that can occur. So your body naturally, when it starts losing the estrogen in the ovaries, it starts to want to well, let's add a little of that visceral fat, because then I can pull from there to keep the, the eggs being released and keep myself fertile and keep propagating my species. So there's like an evolutionary reason as to why we tend to gain in those regions and why it's, more visceral fat during that time. So what can we do about that? Practically speaking, sprint interval training. And this, it sounds more intense than it can be, but it can be intense too if you want it to. So basically, sprint interval training, it takes your maximal effort. And for everyone, that's going to be different. For one person, walking on a treadmill, if you've not been doing any fitness, that might be your maximal effort, and that's okay. I'll talk a little bit later about building a base. That's what you're doing, is you're building that base. And I don't know if any of you have seen anything in media about like heart rate training and zone training. And so for this specific one type of training for sprint interval, I'm just kind of giving you this as a way to kind of correlate with maybe stuff that you've seen in the media, but it'd be like a zone 4 or 5. So that'd be like 90 to 100% of your max heart rate. And you're doing that for 20 to 30 seconds. Okay. Now, to determine your max heart rate, if you want to write this down, this is just an estimation. Okay. So you take the number 220, you subtract your age, and then you multiply that by the percentage you want to work at. Okay. And that should be your maximum. So the number 220, subtract your age, and then you multiply that by, 0.9 if you want to work at 90%. Now this, I say it's an estimation because, 220 minus my age, I'm going to be 47. I think, but I can get my heart rate when I'm pushing at sprint intervals. I can get my heart rate up to like 180, and that's well beyond what my training heart rate should be for that max number. So it all depends on your fitness level, your family history, all these different things. So again, that is just an estimation, but it at least gives you something to kind of look at. Okay. Now, after that 20 to 30 second sprint, you'll recover for 2 to 5 minutes. So that means I don't know if you've heard of the RPE scale, or ratings of perceived exertion. It's basically like a scale of 1 to 10. There's different versions. There's a scale of 0 to 21, random, but for this purposes of this, we'll talk about the scale of 1 to 10. So like on a scale of 1 to 10 for the sprints, you're going to be doing a 9 or a 10. You shouldn't be able to talk to me at all when I am walking by you saying hi, if you're on the treadmill. And then for the recovery, you're going to take it back down to that 2 or 3 level. So you're going to you catch your breath, your heart rate recovers, it gets back down. But when you're pushing, you're getting your heart rate and you're working as hard as you can. Okay. You're going all out. And again, the recommendation by Dr. Sims is 3 days a week for this. And depending, again, I want to preface this, you have to build a base first. You don't want to just jump into this without, if you haven't done exercise for 6 months, do not jump in doing heavy lifting and sprint interval training and plyometrics like I've shown you. You want to build that base first. And there are different ways to do that. Talk to a trainer about that or email me. I can help you out. And sprint interval training or sprint or sit is different for everyone, and it's based on that current level. So the benefits of this is research based that I am sharing. Okay, this isn't just like, ooh, la la la, Beth says this. No, this is research based. That it reduces your visceral fat. It actually increases your metabolism, and it helps you to build lean muscle mass. And that is exactly what we're trying to do. So again, that signal, think of that nerve, that muscle. We have to put a stronger stimuli there in order to get the results, those same results maybe that we were getting in our 20s. We have to have that stronger stimuli. Okay. So I've talked about must build a good base first. Like, I feel like I can't preach this enough. You cannot just dive into heavy lifting, doing plyometric training, without preparing the body first. You have to have that good base of muscular strength, muscular endurance, and flexibility. I say flexibility too. You don't always think about that being a factor. But if you don't have good flexibility, you have a higher risk of injury if you're doing some of these plyometrics and that. So making sure you're including some of that as well. So building that base can take months. I have clients that I've worked with for 6 to 8 months before we actually got to some of that heavy lifting and stuff. And it's hard. You have to push through that mental game. You have to have that right mindset. Like, okay, this is part of the process, and stay in it. But again, like when you build that base, it's just so much better because you have decreased risk of injury. Because if you just dive in, and you don't have the flexibility and you try and do the jump box thing that I just did, it's not going to be a good result. If you try and do that, you're going to end up injured and then end up being on the couch longer because you're recovering from the injury. So you have to just really, really build that base. And just there are no quick fixes. No matter what you see out there in the media, no quick fixes. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about nutrition. I do need to preface this that I am not certified in nutrition, but this is off of the research that I have done. I'm a certified trainer, but not a certified nutritionist. But I just wanted to share what is in both Dr. Sims' book. There's a lot of other authors that kind of support these concepts. Okay. One thing that I really like about Dr. Sims is she says, stop dieting for good. I think a lot of times, especially back in the 80s and 90s, yo-yo dieting was just very much the thing. And it still kind of is out there. You see different things for, various diet plans, eating low carbs, eating lots more meats, all these different options, but really just focus on eating a balanced diet and not, thinking about how can I restrict? Because one of the things that Dr. Sims really talks about is being careful not to have low energy availability, abbreviated LEA. And with LEA, a lot of times, and I've met fitness coaches that talk about, oh, I have my clients eat 500 calories a day. And I'm just like, what? Like, why the heck would you do that? Our bodies are not designed for that. So when you calorie restrict, it just puts your body at just a higher risk of not having the energy to be able to do the things that you need to do. I'm not saying that it doesn't have its place. It might. Talk to your physician about it if you're very concerned. But we really need to make sure, and you'll see this a little bit later in the slide, we need to really make sure that we're getting more protein. The research is showing that it doesn't mean cutting out carbs. We still need carbs. We need fiber. We need fruits. We need vegetables. But as we go through the stage of perimenopause and postmenopause, we are needing more protein to sustain the gains that we want to see in the efforts that we're making in the lifting heavy, in the sprint interval training, and in the plyometrics. I just wanted to include here a little bit about water consumption, making sure that when you do have water with food, it's okay to have plain water. But I do want to tell one plain water story. When I was in my 20s, mid 20s, I did a marathon. And in that particular marathon, there was a 26-year-old who died at the finish because she only replenished with plain water. She did not do goo or Gatorade or any electrolyte thing like that. And she basically dehydrated her body with water. Not that you're all going to go out and run a marathon and only drink water, but one of the things Dr. Sims recommends is if you are drinking water on your own throughout the day, she gives the example of 10 ounces of water, adding 1 teaspoon of maple syrup and 1/16 teaspoon of salt. And that kind of helps your body to actually hang on to that water. Because when you think about the water in your body, it's not just water. There are like minerals attached to it and it's transporting things. And then obviously with hydration during exercise, making sure you're getting more water during those times. So the recommendation for protein, this might seem like a lot, but 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you are a 170-pound individual, the goal is to get 170 grams of protein, which sounds insane. And that's if you are active, if you are lifting heavy, if you are doing the plyometrics, if you are doing the sprint interval training. And carbohydrates is the same, 1 gram per pound of body weight. And then fiber intakes, 14 grams for every 1,000 kilocalories that you intake. So on average, 2,000 calorie diet, you should be getting between 25 and 30 grams of fiber. That is for gut health, which is also very important. Dr. Sims has a lot of information on that. Again, I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail there. Let's see. But a typical plate, I just wanted to share like one of my typical lunches. It may seem weird to you, but it works for me. But I'll do like Great Northern white beans. I might even add some like onion to it or something, or some garlic. I heat those up. I have some eggs on top. I put some non-fat Greek yogurt, a little salt, some rice wine vinegar for flavor, lemon juice. And you can see like in that it's 57 grams of protein. So you can get a lot, but you have to eat sometimes weird combination of things to get it in, but your taste buds get used to it. So I just want to share the typical plate that Dr. Sims recommends is, you know, half fruits and vegetables, quarter protein, and then a quarter of whole grains. So that's just one example. There's different ways to figure it out. There are lots of apps out there that you can like input food to see how many protein, fiber, you know, all the grams of all of that. There's lots of options there. One thing I do want to say, I know I've shared different resources and podcasts and stuff. I just want to note that I don't receive any sort of compensation for any of the things that I have mentioned, the materials. It's just, I'm sharing what I found to be helpful in my journey, and it is science-based. And that's what matters most to me. I'm not going to take whatever celebrity who's selling whatever supplement saying, okay, I need to do that. I'm not going to tell you that's what you need to do. I say, do the research, listen to these podcasts, read these books, take the courses. That's where it's at. That's where you're going to find it, and through your own experience too. All right. So sleep, simply said, just get enough. Weirdly enough, I found that my symptoms of the heart palpitations and that, not only did they get better when I was eating how, you know, my Eastern medicine doctor had talked to me about, but also I noticed I had more heart palpitations if I was up and like doing things after 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. But if I went to bed before 10 o'clock at night, I didn't have nighttime heart palpitations. So sleep for me, I noticed was significant. It might be different for everyone, but you know, different suggestions like moving up the time of dinner, stopping screens, you know, 30 minutes before bedtime. One of the recommendations out there is like keeping your room at 65 degrees Fahrenheit, you know, that you'll sleep better with that. Keeping a pen and pad next to your bed so that you can write down those crazy thoughts that happen at 2 a.m. and don't allow you to go back to sleep. You know, possibly think about moving your workout time. You know, is it too early, too late? Excuse me. Also, I want to note, just checking with your physician before adding any sleep supplementation. There's a lot of different stuff out there about like yeah, melatonin, but take this magnesium and not that magnesium, that sort of stuff. Just make sure you talk to your physician, because there are so many options out there which may be right for you, but they also may not be right for you. All right, so some common trends that I wanted to, oops, for some reason it's not advancing. There we go. That I wanted to talk about, just in case, some of you are like, oh, well, I've heard that zone 2 is like where it's at, and I need to keep my heart rate there. I just wanted to kind of talk about some of those things so you can kind of know in your mind, okay, this is this and that is that. This is not that. So zone 2 training is doing cardio exercise for 45 plus minutes at 60 to 75 or 70% of your max heart rate. It is actually shown to be more effective for men than it is for women. So it doesn't mean that it's bad. And do I love putting on a podcast and just walking at a zone 2? Yeah, but that's more for my mental wellness. So do what works for you, but also know that it's more effective for men than it is for women. So another question I thought you might have is, how is sit different than HIIT? If you've heard about high intensity interval training. So HIIT is 80 to 85% of your max heart rate, with work intervals from 30 seconds to 2 minutes, with rest for 30 seconds in between. And we already talked about with sit, that's 20 to 30 seconds with the longer 2 to 5 minutes of rest in between. So if you haven't done sprint interval training, just making sure, like, actually, if you've built a base, HIIT might be a little bit better for you, because we can just, try different things, but it just, yeah, we can talk more about it too if you have more questions. I don't want to get too out in the weeds on that. Also, I did want to talk about various fasting trends, because there are well-known physicians who are out there in the perimenopause and menopause world that are talking about scheduled fasting and how it can be beneficial. It may be beneficial for you, but I just want to caution, if you have any history or have struggled with disordered eating, because it can be so prevalent, just caution you to talk to your physician before doing anything like that. I wouldn't want it to be triggering for anyone out there. So just, if you are thinking about doing that, talk to your physician before doing it. Also, I just wanted to mention about the GLP-1 medications. I don't want to name any names, but the stuff that's out there and people are talking about it. Just to explain a little bit about that, what that drug does. It's originally developed for type 2 or type 1 diabetes. Sorry, I put type 2, but it's type 1. Slows the stomach emptying, and therefore you feel fuller longer. There is insufficient research on long-term effects. And yes, you will get the rapid weight loss, but typically rapid weight loss, whether it's through a drug, that you're taking, or if it's through natural methods, typical fast or rapid weight loss, you will see more muscle loss and you will see a lower bone density. And that is not what we want at this stage in life. I really encourage you to take the time to do this over the months that it takes to build that base, over the months that it takes to then start that heavy lifting. Take the time. Your focus, if it's to fit into that size 2 dress, like, that's not ever going to happen for me, and nor do I want it to. But my focus, I want to live my best life for as long as I can, to be here for those who I love and the impact that I'm making in this world. So I encourage you all to do that too, and not worry about what size dress it is, and just take that time to do the work, to put in that mental work, to push through. Also, side note, naturally increasing GLP-1 is possible, granted not to the same level as if you're taking a drug, but through taking in higher protein and higher fiber, and adding that moderate exercise with the intensities. So I know this is a lot of information I'm throwing at you. So just an overview of the workout, recommendations. Building that strong base. I know I say it every slide, but build that strong base, please. And then once you have that base, lifting the heavier weights, adding that sprint interval training and the plyometrics. Let's see, final tips and takeaways. Just always checking with your doctor before starting any program. There are no quick fixes. Building that good strength and cardio base. And if you're unsure of how to do it, connect with a qualified trainer. You can email me. My email is blee@nsymca.org. And it'll be on the last slide here too. Another thing that we have coming up is it's going to be a bilingual class that's focused on perimenopause. It's called Fuerza Lift. If you are interested in that, you can put something in the chat. Amy will make sure I get your contact info. So it's going to be doing all these things. It's going to be either, if you're at the base building stage, we will be building a base. If you have a good base built already, we can start doing some heavy lifting, some sprint interval training, and some of those plyometrics. No matter what level you're at, we can add those things. So basically in this Fuerza Lift, you let Amy know in the chat if you're interested, and then I'm gonna develop a survey just to kind of see, okay, what time of day works best for everyone? Is it a 6 a.m.? Is it a, what time of day? That sort of thing. And then we will get more details out with that then. So now I just want you all to go ahead, and most people have their screen shut off, but I just want you to close your eyes for a second. Just take a couple breaths. And this is something you can do at home too if you don't feel comfortable doing it where you're at right now. But I just want you to take a deep breath. Eyes are closed. And I want you to just think about all the things that your body has been through in the last 6 months, year, 2 years, 5, 10, 20. Just think back of everything that it's been through, the challenges that it's overcome, the traumas that have happened, and just thank your body. I just want you to take this moment and just thank your body, in your own mind. Just thank your body for achieving and getting through everything that it's been. Another deep breath in, and go ahead and open your eyes. And I encourage you to do that at home. I have a friend who I was kind of a participant in a pilot program that she had done, and she had us stand in front of a mirror and naked and just look at ourselves and not judge, but just thank your body. And it's a weird, awkward thing to do, right? Like you don't do that. We normally look, or we just pass through or pass by or don't want to look. But just really taking the time to appreciate our bodies for what they have done for us. So I just encourage you to do that. I know it's a little bit mindset, but yeah. So just the different resources I wanted to make sure I shared with you about Dr. Sims. She has this book called Roar. That is, if you are in your regular ovulatory cycles, it's a good one. She has a new course that's coming out that I will hopefully take once I'm done with Menopause 2.0. That is called Next Generation, and it's for female athletes that are teenagers, that are just starting out with their cycles, because there's a lot of research out there that shows, okay, well, if it's the first day of your cycle, well, then that's the day you should actually do your sprint interval training, because that's where you're going to have the most benefits. So she is just like the leading expert in how females should be exercising in whatever stage it is, if it's, pubescent stage, perimenopause, fertile years, postmenopause. She's where it's at with the research. So again, Feisty Menopause, I wanted to share that. Hit play, not pause podcast. And then the survey that we took was from Let's Talk Menopause, the Mayo Clinic book. Another thing that I forgot to mention is the Vagina Coach, Kim Botany. She is out of Canada, and she is awesome. If you have any pelvic floor issues, because sometimes, here, I'll back up. If I'm in a class, and I do take some classes at the Y, and you ask me to do jumping jacks, I'm going to be like, okay, I can do some jumping jacks, because that pelvic floor just isn't what it used to be. Kim Botany, the Vagina Coach, is awesome. She has an app. It's really easy. And it's relatively, it's not too expensive at all. It's very reasonable. She is awesome. And again, she is also backed by Dr. Sims as a viable option for pelvic floor health. So I know we talked about a lot. I'll give you all my biography references. That's there in the PowerPoint if you want to look at that. But there's my information, Blee at YMCA. Questions, comments? I'll go ahead and leave that up. All right.
I'm going to let you know, Kate said that she's interested in your how do I say that?
Fuerza lift. Fuerza
Fuerza,
means strength. Yeah.
Fuerza lift.
All right.
I'll connect you too, but then also she wanted to say thank you for sharing such terrific information that doctors have never shared or acknowledged for her. So
Oh, good. See, like that gets me teary-eyed because
yeah.
I was so dismissed when I was going to different doctors, and I just want people to know you're not alone. Like you are not alone in this. And please take everything that you've noted of your symptoms and like find a new doctor who does support, you know, if yours doesn't.
Oh, and you know what, Kate, I'll connect you and Beth via email. She has some questions about hormone replacement therapy as well,
Okay.
and your personal experience. But
Okay.
yeah. Oh, well, great. Thank you so much, Beth. I said earlier I could listen to you all day. This was
Oh, yay.
incredibly informative and surprisingly personal for me. And I thank you on behalf of the YMCA. And I'll be sure to share all the information you gave. And we'll have this up soon.
All right, wonderful. Thanks so much. And again, anyone, please email me. I'm happy to share more of my story and even more crazy details that I found in the research that I didn't share here. So
Oh, wonderful. Everybody have a great day. Thank you again, Beth.
thank
That
you.
was great. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mhm. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you both.